it is. Sorry.
Did everybody hear that? Okay, recording is started. Yeah, so we're talking about the kind of how we should break up the front end work, primarily in terms of repos and packages, I guess.
Yeah, I think for now that's the main question we need to tackle.
Yeah, and John and Kyle have had a kind of a pleasant experiment with the output area stuff as building those as JavaScript packages with very small, small dedicated service type things.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that, John?
Yeah. So right now we have TransformMime, which just does generic transforming of things. And we're experimenting with having separate packages for sub-renderers. And we haven't had any trouble with that yet. We just started doing that a day ago, so I don't have much feedback, but it looks like it's going to be easy to do, to have a bunch of little tiny packages.
And these are NPM packages?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to talk briefly about your experience in using NPM for that so far?
NPM's pretty slick.
Are they Bower installable as well?
Our one package, I'm not sure. The new package that we just created, I don't think so, not yet.
So I think we should have a goal that everything that runs for the front end should be Bower installable, because when we're in a browser environment, we're gonna need that.
Yeah, and I mean, so Kyle has just I was talking to Kyle about testing and verifying that the TransformMime stuff, which he was building for an Electron app, works in the browser, and he just sent me a demo of it working in the browser. So however that JavaScript got on the page, I haven't actually seen, but
I mean, I think one thing that we want to investigate is what does the build dev package and even loading things onto the page workflow toolchain look like for projects like this? Like, does it make sense to have them both be Bower and NPM packages? Can they be NPM but with Browserify? Like, I think there's probably some experiments we'll have to do to figure out the best way of handling everything.
So it looks like it looks from Kyle's example, it looks like he's using NPM to install client side as well, which you can do, but I think doing with Bower is probably better.
So the problem with NPM is that you've got the potential for multiple copies of the same dependency.
Bower that can happen in Bower too.
No, it can't. Bower flattens the namespace. So that's the
install dependencies inside. And that might actually be. I'm not sure that's. So we can. I agree that we should be doing Bower for client side.
I'm as long as we can come up with a reasonable dev workflow, I think having them both be Bower and NPM packages is probably the best answer, because it will make it usable to the most number of people.
Mm-hmm. I just checked; it's not Bower installable right now, but definitely should be.
But that's
okay. What about the granularity question? Like, what are the repos and packages that we want to have?
we at least want 4, right?
Well, I mean, I'm only thinking about the components that we're actually going to start to build right away. There's additional ones like, you know, the actual text editor or the terminal that we'll think about later. But I'm mostly thinking about the sort of the components required to get the notebook going.
Yeah, I would be. I mean, for instance, and this is something where I imagine Kyle would just go Kyle, okay, my is I would think that I would do the services as one package. I mean,
rather than have
I started out more inclined to actually not separate, you know, to write to interfaces and things inside the thing, but actually not build them as separate packages. Build one package.
For what?
For the front end.
Yeah, I think there's yeah.
Brian, you had a good way to look at this with your analogy of N repos to N packages. Do you want to describe that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned it briefly, but you can imagine a two-dimensional space where one axis is the number of repos, the other axis is the number of packages. And, you know, on the extremes there are sort of one repo and one package. There's also one repo and that has lots of packages. And there's also...
But you can't really do that with Bower, you can't do that.
Yeah, with Bower,
it has to be one-to-one repo to package. Yeah. Okay, it absolutely has to be one-to-one.
Okay, then if Bower constrains that, then that makes it a one-to-one correspondence between packages and repos. I think one thing that I think is important for us is where I think we've suffered in the existing front end is that we were not dogfooding the modularity of the front end ourselves. And so this is where I think we want to make sure that we ourselves are using the same packaging that we would recommend to other people. And that's why I'm not in favor of having big large packages exposed.
Yeah, what I think is that if we had a small set of core packages that we supported, you know, Brian, just taking your example of separating services, input output area, like notebook, text editor, each one of those be a package, then anybody can, and those just be like library packages, like by themselves, they don't provide any sort of like main window functionality. And then we can have like a core distribution that has dependencies on these sets of core packages and, you know, has its own little convention for dynamically discovering user installed packages to augment the environment and load the user installed plugins and those kinds of things. I think that would be a model that would scale well. And I'm particularly thinking right now in terms of if we have a client-side installed Electron environment that we were talking about, where the user can install their own packages, and then the Electron app will dynamically discover what packages are installed and load them up, and all that kind of thing. For something that's deployed through the browser, like through through like an enterprise server or something like that, something that's accessed through the browser, I would tend to lean that a bit more towards the sysadmin there that actually deploys that website to configure what they want at the lowest level. But we could potentially provide a tool that would run over a JSON file and look at all the packages that you want to bundle up in this browser delivered app and goes through and combines all the JavaScript and minifies it and makes, basically the effective thing of like a frozen app that can be then be hit from a server and through a browser.
Yeah, I think all those different targets for deployment are important.
Yeah, and for instance, I think a level of granularity that makes a certain amount of sense that I think we shouldn't do is making each service a package.
Oh no, that's too fine-grained.
Yeah,
we'll go crazy if we start to do that, or like have each cell type its own repo, or yeah. No, I don't think we should go that far. And I guess when I think about like the conceptual idea that we would use to make these decisions is sort of that anything that would be a top-level thing plug-in in the phosphor layout system would be a package or a repo. That's the rough approximate idea that I have in mind.
Sorry, could you say that again, Brian? I didn't catch all of
that. I'm trying to sort of describe and think of what conceptual idea we're using to make these decisions about granularity. I think the idea that I have in mind is that everything that's top level or could be top level in the phosphor layout is a package in a repo.
Okay.
I get it.
Yeah.
Oh, am I hard to hear?
No, it just cuts out on key syllables for me. That's all.
Okay. So question, do you think that services input, output, and notebook make sense? Or would services cell and notebook make sense with input and output under cell?
I would say, maybe input, output makes sense as their own thing, but notebook and cell are, to me, just naturally seem tightly coupled and would be part of the same package. Unless we think people are going to use cells independently outside of the notebook, and like
I think they will, yeah.
And in what what do you envision there?
So the classic example would be someone who has a static website, maybe a blog or O'Reilly's website, and they just want to throw a cell there, and it's not a notebook document. It's a standalone cell that has runnable code connected to a kernel somewhere.
So I don't see that the amount of JavaScript that will be in the notebook is that much more on top of cells. So I think if you were to make like a notebook package that includes notebooks and cells, somebody should definitely be able to use cells independently of the notebook. But I don't know if it makes sense to separate it like as a separate package, because we're only talking maybe an extra 1K of JavaScript for the actual JavaScript that's part of the notebook itself versus cells.
Yeah.
So to say, if you want to reuse cells, you need to get the notebook stuff, even if you're not using it.
Right.
Yeah. Essentially, so we want to, as Brian put it, dog food our modularity on the input and the output, but not on the cells of the notebook.
Yeah,
now,
I'm iffy on this one. It's not clear to me.
And so just as an example, most uses of our JavaScript outside of our own application currently do actually reuse cells and not notebooks.
Yeah.
Like Phoebe, that's exactly what Phoebe is.
Okay, so the other thing now that I'm thinking of it is that if we did separate them, this would allow people the ability to write their own custom notebook interfaces building on top of cells rather than using the package notebook. So that could make sense.
And even non-notebook, right? You could build your own UI, like non-notebook application that still has a notion of cells.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. I'm sold. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I guess the question is, do we draw a line? Do we make? So we've got. Do we have input, output, cell, and notebook, or do we just have cell and notebook and make input and output part of cell?
I would make input and output separate because input and output will be used by things like the web console, which won't use cells.
Sure. Okay. So we've got services, input, output, cell, notebook. And are those all outside? So and then
editor
is the last one of our application, like brings it all together. Are all 5 of those outside the application?
I would all 5 of those would be outside the application, and then you'll have an entry point, which brings them all together. And I think that'll take some more discussion on its own, because I think we're going to have 2 different kinds of entry point applications. One would be something that's targeting an Electron environment where we have some sort of convention for dynamically discovering core packages as well as user installed packages, and which ones to load for that. And then we'll have the deployment story for a server-based application is going to be necessarily different. And so we'll have to think about what we want to do for that.
Yeah, and we can let I think it's reasonable to let John and Kyle in the output area be doing a bit of an experiment with the transform line and a small granularity and seeing how that goes.
Oh yeah,
and then
I think
not do that on the others. So we're kind of experimenting with a few different approaches on the different pieces. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's fine to have the output area component that has the TypeScript, model view interface design rely on a lower level JavaScript library that does just the MIME transformation part. Like I think that's fine.
Okay. So does that? Okay. So that sounds like we've got a kind of a skeleton of how we want to put it together, right?
Yeah. So do we want?
Quick question: Do we have notes of the last 20 minutes conversation or so? I'm just trying to catch up here. Is it on HackPen?
I don't think anyone was taking notes.
I don't think we were taking notes, but I'll send you the link to the HackPad. But the gist is that we're talking about the packaging of the front end stuff and thinking that probably what'll make sense is to package in terms of Brian described it as dogfooding our own modularity and having packages. I'll just put some notes at the top.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I'm just trying to catch up.
So, yeah, we're gonna separate services, output, input, cell, notebook, and the application. So that the application will actually rely on the notebook, cell, input, output, and services implementations as package dependencies.
Yes, plus one on that.
So yeah, so basically, in terms of figuring out the granularity, roughly 5 packages as the reusable components. So for instance, not separating all the cells as different packages and not separating all the services as different packages.
Yeah, I think we feel like that would be too fine-grained.
Yep.
Right. I can see
the output area.
the services and eventually might get split if we have real-time syncing versus sort of the status quo of all messages going to the service. I can see services either splitting out that part of the model later, or having two possible services you can swap in and out. Probably splitting out the model.
I would kind of guess that will actually be more of a sibling, like an alternate provider of services APIs or something. But we'll see how that pans out.
Maybe, yeah. It seems like there should be lots of services that can be reused, but that's a later decision.
Yeah, but they don't need to be. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay.
And do we have anything else we needed to cover today?
Well, let's actually create these repos. What do we want to call them? From the
do we want to make an org for some of it? Like, do we have enough stuff here? Do we want to make like a Jupyter.js org?
I think we should keep it under Jupyter for the following reason,
okay.
And that is that one of the discussions that is coming up in NumFocus right now is how do NumFocus sponsored projects set the boundaries of what they are? And I'm guessing the official answer we're going to come up with is GitHub org level.
Okay, yeah, and it would change all our like private repo stuff. Creating orgs causes some.
Yeah, so I think this should all just be under Jupyter for now. And how do we want to name it? I'm sorry to ask this question.
No, don't ask that question.
But I want people to start to code in these new repos very, very quickly. And so if we can make that the naming decision, then people can really start to go ahead. And so I know it's a horrible discussion to have.
Jupyter-output.
In that case, I would just
put Jupyter-cells.
I would put Jupyter hyphen on all of those and be done.
Yeah.
All right.
Or you could just say JN for Jupyter Notebook or something like that.
But these are independent of the notebook, so -1 on having everything.
Yeah. True. Everything eventually will be in the notebook.
No,
everything will eventually be in the application. The notebook part of it.
Right.
So Jupyter services, Jupyter input area, Jupyter output area, Jupyter cells, and Jupyter notebook. Should it be?
So now this is super confusing. That we've got Jupyter/notebook, which is the application, and Jupyter/Jupyter-notebook is the JavaScript library that is one component of the notebook application.
So what about post-append JS on all of these?
Oh God. I don't know. I guess I don't know how much we want to treat the org Jupyter. This is part of what I was thinking of. This is part of what prompted the Jupyter.js org. Is just the namespace issue, right?
But does that really solve the namespace issue when it comes to Bower and NPM?
Well, because once you're in Bower and NPM, it's no longer ambiguous whether it's the Python server-side project or the client-side library. That's not confusing anymore.
But it is not output area itself too vague of a name to have as a package name?
I would probably put Jupyter. Still put Jupyter on them, but I wouldn't. Do you put JS on the end or JS after Jupyter?
What happens when we stop using? What happens when JS finally dies and we stop using it? Sorry, I was in my own little reality there for a minute.
Yeah. Then we accept JS as a historical abbreviation that means client side.
We'll just follow whatever Phosphor.js does in that case.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, so
I'd like to propose we should just rename things right now Jupyter Services TS.
Or Jupyter Client Services.
Oh, we've already got Jupyter Client. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, crap.
How about J? I mean, I hate acronyms, but what about JFE for Jupyter Front End dash something?
I think that's super unclear.
So we aren't going to have a Qt front end now, huh?
No, we're not.
No, sorry.
I'm fine with the super verbose. I'm fine with Jupyter and JS being all in there. I just have a question of do we like JS on the end or JS after Jupyter? Like Jupyter JS cells?
I would prefer it before.
Jupyter JS?
Yeah, that's my vote there.
I'm fine with that. I don't have any particular preference.
Okay.
Jupyter
And
JS.
singular or plural, cell or cells?
I say plural if there's going to be multiple.
There's multiple cell types there.
So yeah, so plural.
Okay. I think this can be our shortest naming discussion ever if we agree on that.
What if we take out the dash between Jupyter and JS?
Jupyter JS as a word?
I'd prefer the hyphen.
Yeah.
Because then I try to pronounce it in my head and I always fail and I'm like,
Churches.
Churches.
All right. Hyphen it is. All right. All names decided.
Okay. So
we probably
people.
What's that?
Can you create these repos and add the relevant people to each of them?
Yeah. And we'll probably. I think the Phosphor notebook repo already has several of the pieces of the services and stuff, so we can.
Yeah, but start to move things around.
Maybe initialize a couple of them from the Phosphor notebook repo.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good pass at a meeting today. I think we should stop while we're ahead.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Thanks everyone.
Next meeting. Next meeting.
yes,
right.
There will be.
Question mark. What? Okay. There's nothing on the calendar.
Everyone's traveling to PyData this weekend until Monday, Tuesday.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
We'll put the space online. All right. Bye, everyone.
All right.